Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at Andromeda, the great sci-fi anthology from the 70s and from Canada. We're up to number 4, and this one has a wraparound cover. This is by Rami bin Alan, and never seen this guy before. Pretty interesting. And this is an illustration of Jack Vance's Narrowland, which is going to be the big story in this issue. Pretty interesting work. Once again, we have a Robert McKinter front piece. And just such a waste of his great talent. He just keeps drawing this little girl almost every issue. And when he does it, it's fucking brilliant. So I wish he would get new subject matter. Once again, we have the contents page with the same illustration by Paul Rivich and a little editorial from Dean Motter. So here we go. The big adaptation from this issue, The Narrowland. It's adapted by B.P. Nicol and art and lettering by Tom Nesbitt, who we've seen throughout these Andromedas and nowhere else, really. I'm sure Tom Nesbitt did other stuff, but it's weird how such a good cartoonist, but I've only seen him in these Andromedas. So it's Jack Vance really sets up this total alien culture in this this story, and we start off within this little creature within an egg, and I guess he breaks through the shell of his egg and attacks his brother egg and basically subsumes him, kind of strangles him, and then the two of them are fused, and then he breaks out of his shell eventually. Somehow this little lizard person or alien is sentient even in the egg, and he's born into this world. As soon as he's born, this giant bird of prey is swooping down on him. Really like Tom Nesbitt's cartooning, drawing crazy stuff like this. And this little hatchling avoids being killed by this flying creature and dives into the water to safety. This is really interesting here. He basically came up with a trick to make us read against the grain of the normal comic reading page. Someone put these arrows in. I don't know if it was the editor or him, but it actually works without the arrows. I'm like, oh wow, that's natural. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. Little trick of storytelling. Apparently there's this big ogre who lives under the water, and he's got 4 crests on his head. Ern, our hero, only has 2. So apparently this world Narrowland is like divided into 2 parts. There's basically a wall of storm that's just always there with lightning crackling, and a wall of murk, which is just gray, whatever. And the Narrowland divides the 2. I don't know how any planet's atmosphere could work like that, but that's how it works here. So Ern, when he gets older, he starts hanging out on the surface more and discovering all the different cultures on this planet. So I guess there's 1 crest and there's 2 crests, and the 2 crests seem a little different, and when he's younger, they seem to get along and just hang out. But things change. One of the 2, his fellow 2 crests tell him that we are all going to become men and walk the dry land. And eventually he sees these men, which I'm a little confused here because they look just like, 1 crests, but they're considered men because they walk on the earth and they don't hang out in the swamps or the seas anymore. Ern realizes he's observing them, and any of the non-men who come out of the water, the men with a capital M chase them away, even to their deaths. So Ern is like, oh man, I gotta stay away from these guys. But he still is very curious, and he wants to learn how to walk and walk on the dry land. So he takes some clumsy steps, trying to learn how to walk on land, and some of the men see him and chase him back into the water. And that's when things really start to change, where the two crests and the one crest don't hang out anymore. There's the narrow land, which apparently just goes on forever and ever, dividing the storm wall and the wall of murk. One day he sees a female, a single crest, drop some eggs. And he's like, so that's where I came from. And then one day the men attack. It looks like they're attacking both the two crests and the one crest. They attack them with nets. It seems like the men with a capital M all have one crest. Ern is watching all of this. He's hiding in the brush. And basically the men divide up the people. They're basically slavers. So some of them, they bash their heads in if they're, I guess, unacceptable. And some they, put in bondage and, I guess, to sell or do whatever they want with them. Eventually, the men look over and see Ern, and they chase him down and capture him as well. It looks like they're about to kill him with an axe to the head. And all of a sudden, one of their leaders says, wait. And instead of bashing his head in, they grab a knife and they make this wound on his head. Excuse me. And then they put him in a cage. And then they take him out to this, the outskirts of this city, and tie him to a post. Some kind of transaction. And out from the city, these two crests come out. And they're different than any two crests he's ever seen. They're like civilized. Basically, him and his brethren just lived in the swamp, kind of like animals. I like how their titles are like, you must call me Preceptor of the Storm Dazzle. And the other one is Preceptor of the Dark Chill. So the whole atmosphere of this planet, the storm half and the murky half, that's kind of like their religion. So they basically adopt Ern, even though they know that something's off about him. Like, that wound on his head. They're like, you'll wear this cap to cover that. So it's, I guess they like uniformity there. But they teach him all their ways, and he's very adept at learning. So they're kind of impressed. But he always asks too many questions. And it seems to annoy his teachers. And they're just like, this one's not right. They realize that he's just different. Like a good two crest in this city doesn't question stuff. And then he starts noticing that, so there's single crest women there. And I guess all the two crests in the city are neutered. I think all two crests are supposed to be neutered. They just, they can't have sex or won't have sex. But Ern realizes another difference between him is that his sexual organs are way bigger than the atrophied organs of the twos of the city. That's what they call them. It's a little confusing, but it's the ones and the twos. So the twos seem to have no interest in sex, but Ern definitely does, and he can't help but being distracted by the females. And so Ern learns that in this city, they basically believe someone with a disorganized mind, which they suspect Ern has. They call them a freak. That's their word. Basically, a freak is someone who is discontent with authority. Basically, they're a free thinker. So one day, Ern just gives in to his urges and he convinces a single crest woman to sleep with him. A guard finds out. I love that panel. And he basically says, "A freak! Kill the freak!" Ern knocks him out and runs away from the city. And he runs into this jungle, and all of a sudden he sees this wall. So he's trying to escape the guards of the city who are trying to kill him, and he sees a little hole in the wall. He runs through it. One of the guards follows him, but then quickly turns back. Basically, he's startled, and he jumps back to the safety of the other side of the wall. And when Ern turns around, he sees this giant three-crested guy. And Ern realizes he's a three-crest. So they're both freaks. I gotta say, Tom Nesbitt, all his other cartooning, very Von Bodé, very humorous. But some of the straight art isn't very good. It seems like he's the kind of guy who just likes drawing funny. And this was a stretch for him. And these lizard faces are kind of in between. But he really shines as in that humorous style of cartooning. And some of this is a little, this is just very unappealing to me, his art here. Yeah, I guess just some artists are like that. They don't want to draw real, or straight. So basically these guys start hanging out. The two three crests. They're basically the last of the three crests. And the elder one fills in Ern on, the history. So I guess at one time the three crests dominated. And he shows them the origin of how a three crest starts, where instead of invading just one egg, if a female leaves her eggs too close together, three of them, male, female, male combo, then it'll keep eating. Breaking through the other shell wall. So it'll be a fusion of three. So it's basically about a matter of how you place the eggs. You can make different aliens with different numbers of crests on their head by how their eggs are laid together. I should say placed together. So he basically is the last of his race of the three crests until Ern shows up. So here's the history of the three crests. Something about the three crests is they were very smart and industrious. So they basically made civilization, and they shared it with the one and two crests. But eventually, the two crests didn't like their intellectual curiosity and they thought it was blasphemy or something. So they started killing them with the help of the single crests. And until all the three crests were gone. It's a little confusing, this whole alien biology. And so Ern realizes, he's like, I'm going to bring back the three crests. Maybe it's just a simple matter of the way you place the eggs together. Like, we could make more three crests by putting three eggs very close together. So he leaves the safety of this place, and he comes back once again with two crests on his tail. Seems like the elder three crest has this blunderbuss type gun and scares off the other soldiers. Like how he nonchalantly just chops off one of their heads. I don't know why. So Ern was successful. He found some eggs, and he's like, yeah, I will, put them together so more three crests will be born. And here they are planting the eggs in the cool mud. And Ern vows to help them survive and hoping that a female will be created. Because there's never been a female three crest. So that's the experiment mainly. And then the elder one says, there will be two females of this, I am certain. I am old, but well, we shall see. And that's how the story ends. And I really was like this, like, wait, that's it? Such a clunker of an ending where it's just like, okay, it's kind of intriguing, but yeah, very odd way to end the story. I don't know if the story doesn't, the actual prose story by Jack Vance does it more elegantly or more satisfyingly, but the way B.P. Nichol adapts this is really just not a good ending. But, I mean, I love science fiction like this where it just shows you a total alien world and the biology. It's kind of interesting, but for the most part, this isn't much of a story. So here we have these two guys, what are their names? Brian Lee and Mark Griffiths. And apparently they were students in the local colleges, somewhere in Canada, the local college's comic program, which is really interesting. This comic came out in 1978. And, you know, in America, that's been a recent development. You know, the past 20 years, it's like, oh, you can go to college and study comics. And this is, I guess, right around the time Joe Kubert even started his school. But apparently Canadian colleges already had comics art programs. I thought that was pretty interesting. So these guys obviously did this as like their thesis project. It's even in pencil form, which has a nice effect. So maybe that's what they wanted anyway. But, and it basically doesn't have much of a plot and it's silent. So it's just them showing off their storytelling chops. This could totally be a submission to Marvel Comics or DC, which I'm sure it was. I wouldn't be surprised if they sent it. Because that's all it is. It's really not much of a story. It's just, yeah, there's these like kind of barbarian guys, and one of the leaders gets killed by the other group. Look at this great logo, though, for Tomorrow We Die. That's the name of the story. We don't know the breakdown if one was the writer or artist. I think they both drew it, since really there's not much writing in this. It's just them showing off their chops. So I guess all those guys that killed the other king or the other leader, then this guy in a hood starts hunting them down. So I think it's maybe that other leader didn't quite die. I don't really care, to be honest. This is really just a submission, an art submission. But it's not bad. It's pretty good. It looks very Marvel DC. It almost looks like, you know, this is totally something you'd send to a Marvel editor and be like, hey, I could draw Spider-Man now. Or at least Conan. I don't like their, you know, varying panels. Seems like these guys are pretty decent. Definitely better than a lot of guys drawing for Marvel and DC at the time. So I wonder what happened to these guys. Probably went into animation or advertising. And then I guess there's the bad king with the eye patch, and this guy kills him. That's about it. So then we get another Tom Nesbitt story, and this is what I was talking about earlier, guys. This is Tom Nesbitt's, his wheelhouse, if you will. And, you know, obviously very Vaughn Bodé inspired. One might say even ripping him off. But, you know, Vaughn Bodé was either dead at this point or would soon be dead. So somebody's got to draw like this. And this is, we see these two space travelers. And they get a report from Central Control. They're like, we've been getting some reports of scattered television activity in the New York district of the planet Earth. Will you check it out? So they go down there. And apparently, the older of the space travelers tells the younger guys, like, you got to be really careful. Apparently, this whole planet was destroyed by these televisions. They just have one eye, so you can never look at it without your shields on. Keep them on at all times. So they landed the planet, and they're exploring. This is a very Bodé-like creature. or robot. Kind of cute, goofy. I just really like this cartooning, though. Tom Nesbitt's pretty damn good at this style. And then they see it. They see one lone TV, and it's still working somehow, even though there's no electricity or whatever. And it's just spewing, stupid commercials, So the elder space traveler says, keep an eye on it while I warm up the laser cannon. We've got to destroy it. And this young dummy, he lowers his shield and starts watching the TV. And it's all the most inane crap you'd see on TV, dumb commercials and kiddie shows with a clown on it. And we see the face of this guy. God, that kind of looks like Cerebus, doesn't it? It totally looks like Cerebus, actually. We see his face, and he's obviously getting more and more sucked into the TV. It looks like his brain is scrambling. And it's getting worse and worse, and then all of a sudden, vzzt, and luckily, the older space traveler showed up in time and blew up the TV. And he basically scolds him. He says, I told you not to look at it with the shields, without your shields on, you dummy. Now you understand why the whole planet was destroyed by these things? And when they get back in the spaceship, of course, the older space traveler can't help but ask, it's like, what was it like looking at that thing? And he said, the younger one says, it was horrible. I was frozen. I couldn't move. But I had this uncontrollable urge to go to the refrigerator and make myself something to eat. And basically, as they fly off into outer space, the elder says, all we can do is make sure a menace like this doesn't spread to the rest of the galaxy. Kind of goofy, but really nice cartooning. And that's it, guys, for Andromeda number 4. Damn it, something on my desk is sticky. So, hope you guys enjoyed looking at this. Not my favorite issue. Definitely a step down from last issue. I thought it was a really great issue, and I think it's just the Tom Nesbitt trying to draw straight. It's just kind of, it's kind of nephew arty, and just not that good. It's not horrible, but it's not nearly as good as that Paul Rivich last issue and some other stuff we've seen. So, still though, overall, I like this hard SF treatment of comics. It's makes me want to read more science fiction prose. But that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.